The night air was thick with humidity, and the streetlights buzzed like dying insects. Alex barely noticed. His pulse pounded in his ears as he pressed the phone to his cheek, gripping it so hard his knuckles whitened. 911, what's your emergency? It's my dad, Alex gasped. He's struggling to breathe, chest pains, please hurry. An ambulance is on the way. Stay with him. Keep him calm. But calm was impossible. His father lay on the couch, eyes shut tight, one hand clawing at his chest. His breaths were shallow, erratic. Alex had never seen him like this. His father, who was always the strongest person in the room, now looked terrifyingly fragile. Dad, help is coming. Just hold on, Alex whispered, pushing sweaty hair from his forehead. The ambulance sirens in the distance sent a brief wave of relief through him. He bolted outside, ready to flag them down. Then he saw her. Karen stood at the entrance of the gated community, arms crossed over her chest like a queen guarding her castle. The ambulance was idling just outside the iron gate, red and blue lights flashing against the metal bars. She wasn't moving. Alex ran, nearly tripping over the sidewalk in his panic. What the hell are you doing? He shouted, his voice hoarse. Karen barely flinched. I can't let them in, she said coolly. HOA policy. Emergency vehicles require pre-authorization. For a second, Alex thought he'd misheard her. What? Karen sighed as if he were the most exhausting person she'd ever spoken to. There are rules, Alex. Your family didn't submit an emergency access form. I can't just let anyone in. What if this is a liability issue? His hand shook. My father is having a heart attack. Karen pursed her lips, unimpressed. And I am sorry about that, but I don't make exceptions. If I let this slide, what stops others from abusing the system? Behind her, the paramedics stepped out of the ambulance. One of them, a man in his 40s with a tense jaw, approached the gate. Ma'am, this is an emergency. We need access now. Karen didn't budge. I understand that, but this is private property. Alex's world tilted. You can't be serious. Watch your tone, Karen snapped, straightening. I am the HOA president, and I have a responsibility to enforce community rules. You wouldn't believe how many times I have to deal with people trying to bend them. The paramedic exchanged a look with his partner, then pulled out his radio. We have a resident in medical distress, but we're being blocked by a civilian. Requesting police assistance. Karen scoffed. Asterisk police assistance. Asterisk, oh, that's rich. What are they going to do? Arrest me for following the rules? Alex clenched his fists. They'll charge you with obstruction, Karen, and I swear if anything happens to my father because of this. Karen raised a perfectly manicured hand. No need for dramatics, Alex. If your father's really that bad, you should have planned ahead. A burning sensation crawled up his throat. He could barely breathe past his rage. His father was inside, alone, his life slipping away while this woman, this monster, played power games. The second paramedic stepped forward, voice clipped. This delay is costing valuable time. Karen rolled her eyes. Oh, please, he's still breathing, isn't he? Alex lunged for the gate. Open it now. Karen gasped and stumbled back, clutching her pearls like he'd just pulled a knife. You threatened me, she shrieked, turning to the paramedics. Did you hear that? He's dangerous. I don't feel safe. The absurdity of it all nearly knocked the air out of Alex's lungs. His father was dying and Karen was playing the victim. Then sirens. Not the ambulances, but deeper, heavier. A police cruiser rounded the corner, headlights cutting through the night like a blade. Finally. Karen crossed her arms. Well, this should be interesting. The police cruiser rolled to a stop, its headlights washing over the scene in harsh white light. The two officers inside took a moment to assess the situation before stepping out, their uniforms crisp, hands resting near their belts, not in threat but in warning. One was tall, with a no-nonsense expression, while the other, shorter and stockier, had the wary look of someone who had seen too much nonsense for one lifetime. Karen immediately pivoted, her voice shifting from sharp to syrupy. Oh, thank God you're here, she gushed, placing a hand on her chest like she was the one in distress. I was so scared. This man, she jabbed a perfectly manicured finger toward Alex, just threatened me. He was aggressive, yelling, completely unhinged. I was terrified for my safety. Alex barely restrained a bitter laugh. Are you kidding me? My father is having a heart attack, and she's blocking the ambulance. She's the one delaying help. The lead officer, the tall one, turned to the paramedics. Is this true? The older paramedic nodded. We arrived nearly 10 minutes ago, but this woman has refused to open the gate. We've explained the urgency. She won't budge. Karen scoffed, folding her arms. I was following protocol. The officer's jaw tightened. Ma'am, you're obstructing emergency services. That's a criminal offense. Karen let out a dry, incredulous laugh. Obstruction? Don't be ridiculous. This is private property. We have rules to keep the community safe. If I just let in anyone who claims there's an emergency, what's to stop criminals from taking advantage? This is exactly why we have procedures in place. The shorter officer exhaled sharply, clearly already tired of this conversation. Lady, there's a man inside who might be dying. Do you really want to be the reason paramedics couldn't reach him in time? Karen bristled. Oh please. He's probably exaggerating. People love to cry wolf. The lead officer took a deliberate step forward, his voice dropping into something colder. Move. Now. Karen faltered for the first time. Her confidence wavered as she glanced between the officers, as if suddenly realizing she wasn't in control of this narrative anymore. I can't just ignore the rules. The officer's patience snapped. Ma'am, if you don't open this gate in the next 10 seconds, I will arrest you for obstruction of emergency personnel. That means handcuffs, a police report, and a permanent mark on your record. Do you understand? Karen's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted to Alex, her hatred for him flickering behind the forced innocence. She could feel her power slipping. I should call my lawyer. The shorter officer pulled out his radio. We have a civilian refusing to comply with emergency services. Requesting additional units for a possible arrest. Karen panicked. All right. She fumbled with the gate controls, her fingers shaking as she punched in the override code. With a mechanical groan, the gates finally creaked open. Alex didn't wait. He sprinted back toward his house as the paramedics rushed through, the ambulance roaring forward onto the quiet suburban street. He could hear Karen still sputtering behind him, trying to justify herself, but her voice faded under the wail of approaching sirens. By the time he reached his front door, the paramedics were right behind him, wheeling their equipment inside. His father was barely conscious now, his breath shallow, his skin pale. Hang in there, Dad, Alex whispered as the paramedics got to work. From outside, the sound of raised voices continued, but he didn't care anymore. The only thing that mattered now was the man lying on the stretcher. The ambulance's rear doors slammed shut, and the siren screamed to life as it sped down the street, disappearing around the corner. Alex stood frozen on the sidewalk, his chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. His father was on his way to the hospital, but the uncertainty of what came next clawed at his insides. Would he make it? Had they lost too much time? The paramedics had worked quickly, but every second Karen had stolen replayed in his mind like a cruel joke. A cluster of neighbors had gathered near the gate, murmuring in hushed voices. They had seen the flashing lights, heard the shouting. Some had watched from their porches, others from behind curtains. Now, they whispered amongst themselves, throwing cautious glances toward the woman still standing near the entrance. Karen looked shaken, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. Her phone was clenched in her hand, her fingers twitching as if she were deciding whether to call someone, her lawyer, the HOA board, or maybe just someone to validate the twisted reality she had crafted for herself. But there was no validation to be found. The officers were still there, speaking with her in clipped, authoritative tones. Alex could have walked away. He should have. His father needed him. But something rooted him in place, a searing fury that refused to let him leave things unfinished. He turned on his heel and marched toward Karen. She saw him coming and straightened, her face shifting into a mask of indignant righteousness. I hope you're happy, she sneered before he could speak. You caused a scene. You made this into something it didn't need to be. Alex felt something snap inside him. His voice came out lower, steadier than he expected. You almost killed my father. Karen scoffed, tossing her hair back. Oh please, he's fine. The paramedics got to him, didn't they? You're acting like I held a gun to his head. The officer beside her shot her a look of pure disbelief. Karen didn't seem to notice. Alex stepped closer, lowering his voice. You lost, Karen. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Her eyes narrowed. Don't you dare try to smear my name. I was following protocol. Alex didn't waste another breath on her. He turned and walked away, already pulling out his phone. By the time he reached the hospital, his father was stable but weak. The doctor assured him that had the delay been any longer, the outcome could have been far worse. Alex sat beside the hospital bed, his father's hand resting in his own, the steady beeping of the heart monitor the only sound in the room. He had never felt rage like this before. Karen had turned a medical emergency into a power trip, and there had to be consequences. That night, as his father drifted in and out of sleep, Alex compiled everything: the security footage from the front gate, the police report, the statements from the paramedics. He didn't just want justice. He wanted the world to see exactly what kind of person Karen was. The video went up the next morning. Within hours, it had thousands of views. By noon, it had reached local news stations. The footage spoke for itself: Karen standing firm in front of the gate, the ambulance flashing its lights, the paramedics pleading, her smug, dismissive tone as she insisted that rules were rules. It was damning. The HOA Facebook group exploded. Members who had once tolerated Karen's overreach turned against her. The comments were relentless. Asterisk, unbelievable. She put someone's life at risk for what? Power? Asterisk, this woman has got to go. HOA presidents aren't dictators. Asterisk, I always knew she was bad, but this? She deserves everything coming her way. Karen tried to fight back. She posted a long, rambling response about how she was being unfairly targeted, how she was only doing her job, how the media had twisted the story. But it was too late. The footage didn't lie. Then the local news picked up the story, broadcasting Karen's face to every television in the area. The words "HOA president blocks ambulance, delays emergency response" scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Karen's carefully constructed world was crumbling, and Alex was just getting started. Karen's downfall was not immediate, but once it began, it was unstoppable. The HOA, once her personal kingdom, turned against her with a swiftness she hadn't anticipated. The video continued to circulate, spreading beyond their quiet neighborhood into the broader world of social media, where self-righteous tyrants like her were torn apart with ruthless efficiency. At first, she tried to regain control, clinging to whatever shreds of authority she had left. She posted long-winded defenses, blaming Alex for escalating the situation, accusing the police of overstepping their bounds, and even suggesting that the paramedics had been disrespectful to her. But no one was listening. The more she spoke, the worse she sounded. Then came the news that the HOA board had scheduled an emergency meeting. The very same people who had once nodded along to her rigid enforcement of bylaws were now whispering behind her back, weighing whether she had become too much of a liability. She showed up that evening wearing her usual smug confidence, but it was clear the power she once wielded had slipped through her fingers. The meeting was brutal. Alex sat near the back, arms crossed, watching as the board members, people who had previously cowered under Karen's iron grip, began to voice their frustrations. This was reckless, Karen. We have rules, but they don't come before someone's life. We've received over 100 complaints in the past 2 days. You've made us all look like fools. The news got involved. Do you realize how bad this makes the HOA look? Karen fought back, her voice sharp and indignant. I was following procedure. You all agreed to these rules? Not to this extent, one of them interrupted. You turned a medical emergency into a power struggle. That's not leadership. That's negligence. Karen scoffed, shaking her head. So that's it? You're all just going to turn on me because of some overblown internet drama? An older man, one of the longest-serving members of the HOA, sighed. No, Karen. We're turning on you because you proved you don't have the judgment to lead. The vote was called. The decision was unanimous. Karen was removed as HOA president. She stood there for a long moment, blinking as if she genuinely couldn't process what had just happened. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The power she had so carefully hoarded for years had been stripped from her in mere minutes. Then, without another word, she stormed out of the room. But it didn't end there. Within days, Karen's reputation was in ruins. The neighborhood no longer feared her, they mocked her. Memes of her blocking the ambulance spread through local Facebook groups. Someone even edited the video to include dramatic music and captions, turning her into a cautionary tale. Then came the final blow. Alex received a message from one of the HOA board members. A new rule had been passed. Anyone caught obstructing emergency vehicles within the community would face immediate expulsion from the HOA, with fines that could reach thousands of dollars. And Karen? She was being forced to step down from the board entirely. The house she had ruled over like a queen now had a for sale sign staked in the front yard. Alex drove past it one evening, rolling to a slow stop at the curb. Karen stood on her porch, arms crossed, her face drawn with anger and humiliation. Their eyes met, and for the first time she looked truly powerless. He gave her a slow nod. Not a smirk, not a taunt, just an acknowledgement that she had finally reaped what she had sown. Then he drove away, knowing she would never be able to block anyone's path again.